1978, featuring the Greenfield Gunner, Mike Edwards, former Maryville Scott, Donnie Moore, and from the Daily Times, Marcus Fitzsimmons.
And hello, everybody, and greetings from the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. I'm Marcus Fitzsimmons, filling in for Mike Edwards once again, and along with Donnie Moore, Scott Dunkel, and Heath Dunkel, this is the Goatee Sports page. Now
Indeed.
Let's sit today's lineup card, sponsored by the Blunt Partnership, the University of Tennessee Sports Report, sponsored by the Cherokee Group, and the Murphy's Bobcat SEC Notebook. Lead off with Team Dunkel from Two Hype Sports joining us once again. We'll take one more look at what the SEC's headhunters have done to the conference and what that might mean for the first expanded playoffs. We'll run down high school scores and news from around the area, and then Mark It Down, sponsored by Mandy B. Street Realty, will feature Maryville College head football coach Ben Fox joining us. The Anderson Lumber Company Player of the Week will be announced as the Lady Rebels from Maryville volleyball team will come to visit. The Boyd Sports Spotlight shines on what lies ahead for Tennessee today against Florida. And finally, the Shelter Insurance Bold Prediction segment closes the show. And now it's time for that Cherokee Group UT Sports Report and the Murphy's Bobcat SEC Notebook, featuring Heath Dunkel, Scott Dunkel, Two Hype Sports, and Donnie Moore, fresh from his hurricane hunting expedition. Donnie, you've made this an annual pilgrimage. You go on fall break, and there's a hurricane.
You're right about that. I tell you, we went down there and we kind of sweated it for just a little while, but not bad. It's the weather stayed decent the whole time we were down there. So,
but you stayed dry.
We did stay dry. Rained one evening.
And you didn't have a Fast Signs moment outside the hotel or anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, it was a little windy at times, but not bad at all.
Well, I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
As everybody who listened last week knows, we had some technical issues every now and then as I was trying to do your job and not doing it quite as well. So I'm glad to see you back. And in a Savannah Bananas jersey.
True that. In honor of my trip, I love watching the bananas.
They are fun to watch.
They are fun, so much fun to watch.
I still have yet to figure out how they actually keep scoring those games, but, it's entertaining. It is entertaining.
Different. Yes, it is.
Well, the Vols capped the SEC cannibalism Saturday that saw three of the conference's top teams ranked in the top 10 lose. Two of those were Alabama and Tennessee to unranked teams, and then we also had number 25 Texas A&M knocked Missouri from the ranks of the unbeaten with a 41-10 whooping out behind the woodshed. And voters kind of believe that. They dropped Missouri number 21 this week.
Yeah.
I've got some – I want to talk about Tennessee a little bit later. I want to focus on the SEC a little bit now. But I've got to wonder in my head, did they not have a TV on in the locker room in Arkansas? Did they not realize Upset Saturday was in progress and just think, hey, we're one of those teams that's in the top 5. We could be upset. This could impact us. I mean, don't you say to the guys, look what's happening?
Yeah.
If you need motivation for today to get up, look what's just happened to Alabama.
Good grief.
Well, I mean, I tell you, Marcus, we came into last Saturday's segment, and I'll admit I thought Tennessee was going to handle Arkansas pretty well. I expected around a 35-14 ball game. But your question to me was the same question that I had written down for those that were watching, and it was, hey, is this a trap game? Sure enough, it was a trap game. And you look at Arkansas, the last time they had beat a top 5 ranked opponent at home was in 1999 against none other than Tennessee. They faced Tennessee again, top 5 ranked team in their home. That trend continued last Saturday night, unfortunately, holding Nico Iyamaleva to his lowest yardage in 156 and no touchdowns thrown. First time this season he hasn't thrown a touchdown in a ball game. Arkansas really had all the answers to the test. And so that was a super surprising one. And then you talk about the Alabama-Vanderbilt game. I texted Scott that evening, and I said, Vandy beating Alabama was not on my bingo card this week. I did not expect that to happen. But yeah, it was a wild week of sports, and I'm hoping for a little more normalcy this week, and hoping that the higher ranked team will do their job this Saturday today, especially when I'm going to be sitting and kneeling watching it.
Well, yeah. Well, for your sake, we'll hope things go better then.
Yeah.
So, I think the world knows it was Vanderbilt 40, number 1 Alabama 35. Bama drops to number 7 this week. And there's been a lot of storylines that they've talked about of, it's been so many decades since Vanderbilt beat a top 5 team.
Mm-hmm.
So many, I think it was their first, over number 1 AP team, it was their first one. Mm-hmm. Against Alabama, it goes back to 1984. And I'm going to point something out to you, and I think Donnie and Scott will both recognize when I say this. 1984, what's similar? Alabama in 2024 is 1 year removed from Nick Saban retiring. In 1984, they were 2 years from Bear Bryant dying. Bear died in 82 after that Tennessee game killed him. And
well, if he hadn't 2 years later when Vanderbilt beats him, he would have.
That would have done it, yes. So maybe there's something to that coaching transition that affects Alabama and Vanderbilt. But 20 transfers through the portal, 20 incoming freshmen, that's half your roster. Mm-hmm. So is that enough really for a culture change at Vanderbilt? I mean, do we really have to have that conversation that Vanderbilt's not Vanderbilt anymore?
I mean, I think one thing you have to credit is Clark Lee and the amazing job he's done developing this team over the last few seasons. He's really taken his time and tried to build the identity of this team into what he wanted it to be. He wanted this to be a more physical team. You saw that last weekend. Bama only had the ball 18 minutes time of possession because Vanderbilt dominated the game. And they continued to convert on third down, keep the ball, keep the Alabama offense off the field. Give credit to Diego Pavia. This guy coming from New Mexico State, he only had one scholarship offer when he put himself in the transfer portal, and it wasn't from Vanderbilt. He walked on. The reason Vanderbilt didn't offer him a scholarship, they had 6 already on the roster. So this guy walks on, 6 quarterbacks already on scholarship, and somehow finds his way to be the starter against number 1 Alabama and does the job and seals the deal. I mean, what a great story for him. To me, that's just an incredible story. But yeah, it's certainly a game you'll remember. You think about, we talked about that trap game with Tennessee and Arkansas. I mean, you really look at it, it definitely was one for Bama. They are coming off the high of beating Georgia, feeling like they're just on top of the world. They're the new number 1. They've got everything they wanted. Kalen DeBoer's kind of getting his team right where he needs to be and saying, Nick Saban who? We're continuing to carry it forward. And then they lose to Vanderbilt, and everything crashes. And you have to imagine that Alabama fan base. I mean, I could imagine us being this way as a Tennessee fan base, going from, hey, we got the right guy, and we're going to be just fine, to, hey, it's time to find a new coach or can we talk Saban into coming back? And so I'm interested to see how this team bounces back and regroups. They've got a great chance to against South Carolina today, a team that is not very good at converting on third down and moving the football. So I'm curious to see how that progresses.
But is that the fact that it was Vanderbilt that has the ingredients to beat Alabama, which was to keep possession, convert on third downs on long drives, keep them moving, and then stop Alabama on that first third down. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody knows that's a recipe for a win, to be able to do that. But Vanderbilt having the ingredients to do that to Alabama, if you're Georgia, are you not pounding your head against the coffee table?
Who knew? Who thought?
Well, right now, Vanderbilt can sneak up on people because everyone sees it, says it's Vanderbilt.
Not anymore.
But, yeah, their eyes are starting to open now that, hey, we need to pay attention to this team because Vanderbilt's had, of course, the Alabama game, but even a couple of games before, they are really impressive. They're kind of getting your eyes open.
So when we talk about the playoff, which is where everybody's focus is, 12 teams, the automatics. No, I don't think anybody had envisioned Tennessee as being the SEC's automatic. But it's all those at-large bids. So as of this morning, going into today's games, the SEC still has 5 teams in the top 10. You got number 1 Texas, number 5 Georgia, number 9 Ole Miss, and then you have Alabama and Tennessee. So Georgia's already lost to Alabama, still has to play Ole Miss, and the Vols, and Texas back-to-back. UT plays Georgia and Alabama. So they've got 2 games with top 10 teams. Texas just has Georgia.
Right.
I somehow our scheduling demons did not do this one right. Ole Miss plays LSU and Georgia. Now, LSU isn't technically in the top 10. They're 12, 13, depending on which poll you look at. But possibility of sneaking in there depending on how things go in a given week. Alabama has the win over Georgia, still plays Tennessee and LSU. When you look at that kind of cannibalism, how many teams can the SEC really viably have that are going to not be 3-loss programs when it comes time for the selection committee to look at them?
Not many.
I mean, Tennessee's already got its loss. I mean, and
sure.
You were thinking they were maybe going to get. You were hopeful. You were thinking they might get Alabama or Georgia, but if they drop both, and heck, if they drop one to Florida tonight, you're not even in contention. You're talking about the Liberty Bowl.
How sad.
I think the thing is, too, though, is it just really depends on how the committee weights the schedule in totality. Because you could have 2 or 3 losses, but depending on who you've beat non-conference-wise, maybe if it's a ranked team or not, how those teams you have beat have done the rest of the season, and what their record is, what their rank is as well. Where do they weight that? Because maybe a 3-loss team is really a top 10 team based on who they've played, and they've just kind of come out in a couple of tough matchups versus a 1-loss team that really hadn't played anybody. So I think that's something where it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes up, is how they weight those losses and the schedule as a whole. But, yeah, I mean, there's certainly going to be a lot of carnage, but when do we not see that in the SEC? Because they get to kind of beat up on each other. But we usually find, and it doesn't always happen, but we usually find when they play out of conference, you realize all of a sudden how good the SEC is, because typically there's a little bit more dominance when they play non-conference opponents. I tell you a game to look out for today, and being also a fan of this team, I hope it goes my way. But Texas-Oklahoma, Red River rivalry today. Huge rivalry between those 2 teams. Oklahoma at 18, Texas at number 1. I was a part-time Hook 'em Horns Texas Longhorns fan growing up, so I'm rooting for Texas to get on, to stay on track and stay undefeated today against the Sooners.
Oh, that's just sad. It really is. One, because even though Tennessee Oklahoma had a lot of Heupel thing, if you ask Heupel who's going to pick in that game, I'm pretty sure he's going to go with Oklahoma, no matter what kind of blood there is between his past relationship there. There's some things you just don't do.
Well, it probably also helps, not only because he went there, but number 2, if Oklahoma wins that game, it only strengthens Tennessee's game against Oklahoma.
And Tennessee needs that. That was one of the other points. Because when you asked me last week, I was the one who said, no, I have this as like 4 out of 10 for the win.
Yeah.
So the thing that was bothering me then, and I think has become evident now, is the NC State win doesn't matter anymore. NC State has proven they were a top 25 team only in talking season. Mm-hmm. You kind of throw that one out. Oklahoma, you still don't know where they lie, but it wasn't as impactful a game as you really thought it was going to be, given their injury status. And so going into Arkansas, Tennessee hadn't really played a true caliber team, and they hadn't played a grinded-out game, per se. And all of that just became really, really evident that Arkansas has been beaten by some good people and was not intimidated in the least. So all things being equal, that set Fayetteville up to let their little ghost demon, whatever it is they have. I don't know. Maybe it's the ghost of Ray Trail that hangs over that place now. I don't know.
I wonder who Coach was rooting for.
Oh, I know who he was rooting for, but
But I want to say kudos to Sam Pittman.
Mm-hmm.
He coached a masterful game. You know, there's been some dispersion shed on Sam Pittman throughout the years at Arkansas, and you know, I thought he did a wonderful job, you know, on the sideline coaching and in preparation as well for that Vols game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Alabama is the easiest place to recruit to, and so I think that he's done a really good job with his lineup and what he's been able to do with that team. You know, I'm really curious. For Tennessee moving forward, one of the things they've got to correct defensively is when you face a team with a mobile quarterback, how do you keep him contained? Because when Oklahoma went to that backup quarterback, he really started to have some favor. Now, yeah, sure, you can make the argument. Josh Heupel looked like he said on the sidelines, hey, we're going to let off the gas a little bit. We're going to play a little bit more soft. But you started to see the defensive backs exposed a little bit. You started to see some trouble with the mobile quarterback. And then you see that rear its ugly head against Arkansas again. That quarterback was able to evade pressure, take off, and make some things happen down the field until he got hurt later in the game. You saw them be able to kind of pick apart our defensive secondary a little bit. A new group that's still kind of figuring themselves out because we had so many transfer out, so many come in. And so moving forward, too, I was kind of interested in this Florida game that it sounds like Graham Mertz is going to be the guy. But to me, this is the type of game where you go with DJ Lagway, the freshman, who is pretty dynamic as a runner and has got a killer arm. I understand that Graham Mertz transferred in. I'm sure there's some NIL deals behind the scenes. But Lagway seems like he would probably give you your best chance to win today because of what he can do and what the defense struggles with. But Tennessee's going to have to find a way moving forward because they're going to see it again in Alabama. Jalen Milroe knows how to move. He knows how to throw as well. So Tennessee's going to have to find an answer.
That's one of the things is you've got what will Florida do? I mean, we know what they put on paper, but we don't know who's actually going to take the field and be in there the majority of the game. But when your seat is that hot, you can take it as looking over your shoulder and second guessing everything you do, and I can't do this because if it doesn't work out, this will happen, or if I put the freshman in, this might happen, and then they'll really come after me. Mm-hmm. Or you can just take it as complete freedom that I'm gone anyway. This guy's going to let me win this game. So, and I think you're right. If they go with the freshman, they've got a better opportunity to win.
What should we call that? Talking about mobile quarterbacks who take what the defense gives them. Shall we call that the Graf effect?
Right. It reminds you a lot of Eli Graf for sure. Well, and the thing is, too, it doesn't get any easier for Florida. You look at the next 4 games on their schedule. Heck, the rest of the season, but let's just take a look at the next 4. Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU.
Yeah. There's not a good one in there.
No, not at all.
And I did not mention them in that list, but Kentucky they're the top defense in the conference.
You've also got former Georgia quarterback Brock Vandagriff quarterbacking the Wildcats, who also, I think, had some answers to the test as to why Kentucky and Georgia played so closely together. I mean, that was a great game.
No, you think he gave them some insight into Georgia's playbook?
I mean, I think you saw that for sure. You saw he probably
would that be the smart thing to do?
Well, and being as close of friends as they say he is with Carson Beck, you know, maybe understanding what Carson's weaknesses and tendencies were and being able to relay that to the Wildcat defense so they would know what to look for and how to make his life difficult. They certainly did that. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for Florida facing Brock and the Wildcats next. And then Georgia, Texas, LSU. I mean, I don't know if Georgia to me, looking at the rest of Florida's schedule, if they don't win today, I don't see them winning again until November the 30th when they play Florida State.
Which makes you wonder if they'll still have the coach at that point.
Sorry, Brian.
Right.
Sorry, boss.
I don't think he's worried about the Gators that much. Boss is more Florida State, Miami. I mean,
yeah, he's a huge fan. Seminoles.
So I'm going to throw this out a little bit early, but the observation I had, but I did not really share last week. When you look at what Oklahoma and now Arkansas have done to Tennessee's offense, I mean, the dynamic, high-tempo, throw the ball down the field offense that produced 14 points in Fayetteville on runs. How much do you think that is impacted by the fact that Heupel's first few years, we had guys who had been in college 5 and 6 seasons. Transfers, new to his system, learning, but had been around the college game for 5 or 6 seasons by the time they took a start, and now you have a guy who's got 6 games of experience. How much? I mean, how much does that game? How much do you think that game experience that may have been a cushion we just didn't recognize the first few Heupel seasons?
That plays a lot into it. You've seen. I'm not going to try his name at the moment, but Nico.
Nico, California is what we call it.
But yeah, you know, he looks great. He looked great against Iowa, and then he looked great in the first couple of games. But then you start getting wrinkles in from the defenses. And Arkansas, yeah, I mean, they threw a curve at him he was not expecting. And it's like one of those, you expect a fastball pitcher, and you get a pitcher with a bunch of junk that throws everything. So he wasn't prepared for it. The offensive line obviously was not prepared for it at all as they were getting beat constantly. And Nico was having to make quicker decisions than what he's used to. So teams have seen that. That's what Florida's probably going to use, and the other teams are going to do as well. But it does, I think, play a lot into the fact that he is still young, and we got to remember that he is.
It was one of those games to me where it was the first time for Tennessee fans they realized Nico was human. And then trying to figure out, okay, what do we have, and not like going into full panic mode. I think he's so young. You know, it was interesting earlier in the year. Someone was like, "This is the toughest defense Nico has ever faced." And I was like, "You do realize that in his first start, he faced Iowa in a bowl game, like who had one of the top defenses.
You had one of the best
nation.
defenses he's going
point.
to see
So,
in his college career in the bowl game.
Right, and so I don't necessarily think, you know, early on that was true when someone said that, but you're finding out now to try to contain Heupel's offense and this freshman who really just wants to go down the field and use that talent is more cover two shell defenses, forcing Tennessee to be methodical and dink and dunk it down the field. And I think that's where Tennessee needs to realize they've got a really good running back in that backfield of Dylan Sampson, who has been pretty dominant when he's had the opportunity. He was getting stronger throughout the Arkansas game, and I felt like maybe we got a little bit away from that and probably should have continued to lean on him to help our young quarterback in that situation. So I think Nico's got to learn now in his young career, and that will certainly help him as you move forward, how to be patient and know that, you know, certain games you just have to be more of a game manager, move it down the field, pick your spots, and there will be other games where things will open up a little bit more. But if you can continue to bring teams forward because of Sampson, that shell, that kind of cover two deeps, it's going to go away because they're going to have to start getting in the box more and coming after you, and it's going to allow more opportunity to spread it out down the field.
And I guess that's a part of the other thing is you have a young quarterback, so I don't think we've considered that maybe the full playbook isn't right there, that the full scope of plays that may have been dialed up and been given to Milton and given to Hooker may not be on the table right now, that there could be some limitation. And I'm wondering if that is impacting the decrease in the amount of tempo drives Tennessee is doing. It's been more deliberate. And like you said, the defense has something to do with that. But Heupel has seen that before and found ways to go around it, usually by hitting quick with runs, but not letting up the gas on that tempo play. So I'm just wondering if there's a limitation there that may be influenced by having a redshirt freshman quarterback.
The only reason I'd push back on that is because he's a redshirt freshman. He's got a season under his belt prior to coming in to where he has been able to kind of learn the playbook and figure some things out. So in my opinion, you know, looking at Nico, I don't necessarily think it's as much limiting the playbook as much as it is trying to protect him because of what he's dealing with. And what he's dealing with right now is, you saw in the Arkansas game, a left tackle and right tackle who were getting whipped quite a bit. And so how do you help your quarterback in trying to find little ways through wide receiver screens and other ways to get the ball out of his hands quickly because he's not having a lot of time in the pocket. In the Oklahoma game, we saw that. We see it again, rear its head in the Arkansas game. Coach Ellerby and the offensive line coach has got to figure out some ways to help those tackles figure out what adjustments they need to make, be able to give him some more time in the pocket. And hopefully by opening up the playbook, letting him do some more things, getting Dylan Sampson involved more, that will help with that timing. But I think that's where I would really focus my corrections on.
And I think you're right. Okay, I'm not going to push back on it. Donnie, I know you're giving me the sign that we've got a countdown, but our guest is already here, so I'm thinking we can go to commercial early.
Let's do it.
And so we can go ahead and pull the rabbit out of the hat here. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay, so we'll take a time out here, and when we return, we'll mark it down with our special guest. You're listening to the Sports Page, Blount County Sports Voice, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
For over 90 years, Anderson Lumber Company in Alcoa has proudly served and supported our local communities. Locally owned, so the money
Coach Fox,
made
good
here
to see you.
stays here. Whether you're renovating a kitchen, bath, new floors, doors, or windows, Anderson Lumber is so much more than a lumber store and can take care of you from design to install. We welcome you to visit Anderson Lumber in Alcoa for all your home's needs, or shop over 67,000 items online at AndersonLumberCompany.com. Anderson Lumber since 1925. Aubrey's is known for real comfort, real food, real good. But remember, Aubrey's is also really into Blount County. Aubrey's Maryville has been a strong supporter of local schools and sports programs for more than 15 years. From baseball to football, dance teams, and marching bands, Aubrey's has helped schools and youth programs generate thousands of dollars. It's easy for us to do because it's the right thing to do. So the next time you're looking to choose a place to eat, we hope you'll choose Aubrey's. Real comfort, real food, real good. See what's on the menu at aubreysrestaurants.com.
And welcome back to the GoT Sports Page. And before we visit with our first guest this morning, let's take a look at what happened this past week. Donnie Moore, you were out of town, but you tell me you've done your homework, which wouldn't have been too difficult because it was the bye week for almost everybody.
Yeah, I didn't have much to do.
For most of our teams. But go ahead and give us that scoreboard, and I'm going to kick in behind you with some stuff that you may not have had on your radar given the time you spent on I-75 yesterday.
That's probably true. It's kind of like a parking lot. But anyway, let's get right to our local scoreboard, local prep football scoreboard. 2 games on the slate, all sponsored, of course, by our segment is sponsored by Mandy B. Street Realty. And we appreciate Mandy and her fine business giving us a sponsorship right here. Thursday night action. We had 1 game Thursday, 1 game last night, local high school football. Thursday night's action saw Greenback host Midway, and
it went fast.
It did go fast. Not too great for the Cherokees. They're struggling, but they're still fighting. Midway won that game 35-0 Thursday night, and it was a region game. So
it was a region game.
Yeah, it counts.
Greenback still got a couple region games in Oneida to go, but their playoff chances dimmed a lot last night.
They did, yeah. But hang in there, Cherokees. Last night's game that we had on tap here in the area was Seymour hosting Fulton, and Fulton came in rated at number 24.
The Falcons
left rated higher, I imagine.
The Falcons they're not the team that we saw in the 2000s and the 90s, but but they're definitely on the upswing back up.
They are, yeah.
And they proved that. I don't know if they proved it. Seymour's not had a good season.
No,
I hate to say that about my alma mater, but
I understand.
It's tough times at Boyd Creek University.
Yeah. But that game ended up 35-7 in favor of the Falcons. Got 1 game on the slate college-wise today, at least one that I know of, as far as a local deal. Carson Newman Eagles standing at 5-0 now.
Yes.
Our good friend Tony Iruli's with us when he can be, but he's off coaching today. They go to Mars Hill University over in North Carolina, in Mars Hill, North Carolina, and take on the Mountain Lions today. So the Eagles better fly high and stay away from those Mountain Lions today. It's at 1 p.m. Mars Hill comes in at 1 and 2, so Eagles have maybe a good chance at picking up number 6 today.
I'm not going to say it's a fast start, but it's a pounding start.
It is that.
If you looked at their stats, I think it was last week's game where they ran for almost 500 yards. I mean, dominated the game. If it hadn't been for 2 turnovers, it would have been a 7-score deficit. They are just dominating with that ground game. Let me kick in for you with high school, though, because there were a couple things that affected some of the region standings, and we have a congratulations to give out because you may not have seen the paper yet this morning.
I have not.
But William Blunt golfer Sophia Gambini
Oh,
won the state championship yesterday in individual play.
Great.
After 3 sudden death playoff holes.
My goodness.
Wow.
Took 3 holes, a par 5, a par 4, and a par 5. But she hit a second shot that was just spectacular on her approach. Hit the back of the green, rolled it back up to within about 15 feet, and the other ball was off into the back a little bit, and she set herself up for possibly an eagle, but she got out with the birdie, and that was enough to win it.
Good deal. Well, that's great. We're proud of her.
Just great golf from her.
Where was that
That was
match
down at
played?
Sevierville Golf Club.
Sevierville. Okay.
And they were playing. The girls were playing on the Highland course.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was my first time that I've ever walked the Highland course, and it earns its name on that back nine. Once you go underneath the Old Knoxville Highway and start going up the side of the hill, Scott Cupp and I walked some hills yesterday following Sophia. So I want to give that shout out. But as far as region standings go, because most of our teams were off,
Yeah.
and
Fall
this one comes close to you and to Heath and Scott. For Alcoa, Kingston beat Austin East 49-35.
Yes, they did.
So theoretically, Kingston is the only challenge for Alcoa for the 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Union beat Scott 30-29 in a nail biter, which pretty much, if things play out the way they have for years now, means Scott is out and Union will be the number 4
Right.
seed. Which I guess we'll find out because that's going to be Monday Night Football at Alcoa in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
For all of us.
29th.
In Maryville's region, Bearden took a 38-19 win over Cleveland, which I was not expecting the game to be that lopsided. That leaves Maryville as the only unbeaten in the region going into the final 3 games. And good news for William Blunt, Jefferson County 48, Westridge 34. That knocks Westridge down to 0-4 and locks in William Blunt as at least a playoff spot, and whatever they do from here on out can only improve their number 4.
So
But
last time William
they've
Blunt's going to be in the 6A playoffs too.
Right.
That's true. And the first time they've made the playoffs since 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and we visited with Coach Reeves a couple weeks ago, and they said that was the goal.
Sure.
Was to get in and then improve and then get the win. So we'll see what happens. But congratulations to all those teams out there, and everybody coming back from fall break and doing that stretch this morning and thinking about school on Monday. I'm sure you're excited.
County schools are off Monday.
That's not fair. How do you come back from fall break on a Tuesday? That's
Short
not-
week.
Who wants to go back to work on Monday?
Really?
Oh, man. Well, let's go ahead and mark it down. Brought to you by Mandy B Street Realty. And we're joined by our special guest. And if you're watching us on YouTube, he just came on the screen. Coach Ben Fox from Maryville College is joining us. Fresh off the 38-13 win over LaGrange and all the relaxation of a bye week. Coach, welcome and thanks for joining us this morning. You know most of these characters are sitting around here with us. And I'm going to let your color commentators lead off on this to put you on. So we'll work you in before we really put any heat under the seat.
Sounds like a plan.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure getting to talk with you and talk a little Scots football. 3-1, 2-0 in the conference. Big win against LaGrange, 38-13 last week. Have a chance to kind of heal up a little bit from any bumps and bruises you've received, and now moving on to another big game next weekend. What have you learned so far about your team at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think we've really been blessed. We've got a really experienced team. We've got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football back, and so I've really enjoyed being around them. I think I've tried to really kind of enjoy this team a lot the last couple of years. Have been a lot of guys that really believe in just kind of the message and culture of what our program is, and so they're really fun to be around, and I've tried to really enjoy coaching them and make sure that I soak up the time I have with them, because there's a lot of kids that are seniors and juniors and seniors in this group that were original true believers in all the stuff that we were doing, that really stayed when it was hard and kept improving and kept working and did all the hard stuff. And so it's just been a lot of fun. I think our competitive character is pretty high. I've been really impressed with how they have come to work every day and competed and tried to get better. I think that's when you have an older team, sometimes it's hard to find the margins for them to continue to improve, and they can kind of tap out. So I think there's been a relentless sense of trying to improve and get better. They want to get coached. They want to get better, and that's been a lot of fun. And, you know, I was really proud of them this past weekend. You know, LaGrange, they won their first game. I got to give a shout-out to them. The week before we played them, they won their first game in like 18 months. It's been since, 2022. They hadn't won a game. And so we got their very best. That was the most excited, most intense, most everything that they were going to be. Our guys kind of weathered the storm a little bit and then came back and had a big second half. I was proud that there was really no panic in their voices and at halftime, and they just kind of kept plugging along, kept playing, and I was really happy for them.
Yeah, Coach, you talk about trying to find areas of improvement.
Yeah.
Right, and I love that mentality of not being satisfied with where you stand, but how can you continue to get better? And if there was one area of opportunity that, you know, Scott and I noticed in week one when we had the pleasure of calling the game, but I've noticed has continued to be a trend, and I have to imagine it's probably one that's probably frustrated you a little bit, and you've been trying to figure out how to fix it, but penalties. Yeah. Currently, the Scots lead the USA South in penalties, giving up 100 yards in penalties a game. Yeah. The second one in the USA South is only allowing 50. So I feel like if the Scots can correct that, especially with this veteran offense and defense, really the sky's the limit. But have you noticed any sort of trends of what you can do to correct that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, to me with penalties, so much of it is like, what are the types of penalties, right? Are they – I think we've cut back a lot on the insane, like, personal fouls and, like, penalties of passion. Yeah. You know, right. We've cut back on that, which has been important. That shows a lot of growth and maturity. You know, there's going to be holding calls and things are going to happen. I don't necessarily mind when things happen if guys are playing aggressive. It's just kind of the way the game goes. But the penalties, you know, I think we've cut back on them. A lot of it is, you know, for example, penalties that happened up front, even going back to last year. A lot of the holding penalties that happen on some of our tackles were really more of a function of interior pressure and Bryson having to scramble, getting flushed. Yeah. And then the play happens right at the point of attack and he gets called every time. So some of it has just been kind of unlucky, and it's just kind of the way it works. But, you know, it's just make a point of emphasis about fundamentals, making sure that our hands are inside, that we're moving our feet, and that we're playing hard and doing the things we're being coached to do, and give us a chance to cut back on them. But it's as long as, again, like it's not the crazy personal fouls or the taunting or stuff that is like detrimental to what's going on. That's when you go back to the game we lost. That's what got us against Center. We had a couple personal fouls, and I think a lot of it is understanding for the guys the difference between being intense and being emotional. People think those are the same. They're not. Like, intensity is like very focused on doing your job over and over and over again. Passionate, yes, want the game to be fun. But emotion can lead to a lot of ups and downs. And when guys play emotional, they play stupid. Like, emotional football players are stupid football players, and we don't have any time for that.
Coach, I wanted to hit you with one because this is something you probably don't know about.
Okay.
But I wanted you to see if you could explain this one to me.
Okay.
You were on a road game. I'm not going to name the schools, but it was one of the road games this season. We were watching the game cast down at the Daily Times, and you all crossed midfield, and I wanted you to help me out because they said Maryville crossed midfield. They've got it 1st and 10 at the 53-yard line. Where's the 53-yard line?
Man, it's hidden. It's one of those high-level things you've got to really look for. And when you're a really high-end football operation, you know, I'm sure the team we're playing is a really high-end football operation that they get know intimately the details of the game.
I thought maybe Bryson had like some kind of secret.
Yeah, it was. It's a way for him to try to pad his stats a little bit. He's like, hey, if we can add an extra 5 yards here in the little, that's an extra 5 free yards of passing every time.
I thought maybe we'd went into Canadian football.
Well, if I need to know, we'll put another guy out there and start running them towards the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, there you go. Coach, Maryville College defense #1 in the conference, 11.3 points points given up per game. Noticed too that on October 7th, Grant Henderson was the defensive player of the week.
Yep.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your defense so far this year?
You know what? I've said this a lot for a long time. I think our defensive staff, I think Coach Brummett, I think Coach Duncan, our DB's coach, and Coach Albert Longhill, our defensive line coach, and Coach Travis Mazinga, who helps kind of coach our outside linebackers, they're awesome. We've got adults. They really know what they're doing. They work really hard. I think there's a real beauty with how Scott calls the defense. There's a real beauty in the simplicity of what we do. It's I would equate it to like when teams watch Iowa play on defense. It looks very simple. It's like, oh, they just run the same thing over and over again. But there's a lot of subtle details to what's going on and the detail of assignment of then the defense is recognizing plays and being able to play fast. And then, I'm partial to them because they're mine. But I think we've got some really premier players on our defense. I think there's some really special players. I think up front, our defensive line is 8 to 10 deep of guys that can really play, that play really hard, that compete. And I think that, we kind of give them like the tiger in the cage. We poke them with a stick all week and throw some red meat at them and then cut them loose and let them go. But they play really hard, play really passionate. I think Coach Longhill does a great job of coaching them. And they see block recognition, and they play with their hands and defeat blocks. And then those linebackers, they've played for so long, and they've played such a high level. And, Jacob Bervin and Tyler Boss are two of the most intelligent players on our team, just like their classes. They take different classes than the other classes some of the other guys take. The really hard ones, like real college classes, are really difficult. And they've played a lot of football, and they don't make mental mistakes, and they tackle and get them on the ground. I think our defensive backs have done a great job. It's a good cohesive unit. It makes it really hard on us during practice. We do a lot of good, probably do more good on good, like live work than probably most teams do because it's good for our offensive line. If they can block these guys, they can block anybody we're going to see. They're not going to see up front that's going to be more intense and better, faster. And so they're really good. They're really, really good, and it allows me, I told our staff this last week. I went for it a couple times. I got a little frustrated and did probably some ignorant things against LaGrange, going for it. I didn't want to score. I didn't go for it right here. It's probably not real smart, but I ain't going to score. Like, let's just try. Let's try to get them going. And it does give me a little bit of latitude as head coach and as a play caller to kind of, we can roll the dice a little bit because I really do believe in them and in the staff and what they do and how they play.
Coach, let me ask you about something that's really close to my heart, being a former Scots punter. What about your special teams? Talk to us just a little bit about your special teams play and how it's affected your season.
Yeah, you know what? I think we've got good specialists. I think that's probably, it starts with that. The kicking game starts with the kickers and the punters and the snappers and like the specialists that operate. I've been really proud of our operation with our field goal PAT, just like the timing and how it's done. I think Brennan's done a really nice job of making the kicks and being ready to go. He's a really competitive player, which is a lot of fun. He's not a kicker. He's an athlete, and just I kick. Like, there's a very different thing. Like he's very athletic and competitive.
Right.
I think our coverage units, I think, are more a function of the specialists. So I'm talking about kickoff and punt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their coverage function of the specialists, but also of the depth of the defense, right? I mean, we're 8 deep at linebacker of guys that can really play.
Wow.
So, like, those coverage units are guys that they're like good football players running down there that get them on the ground and tackle and do the things that you want them to do. And then we've got some receivers and stuff, guys that have been on special teams for a long time that are good coverage guys. They're good at running and get down there and tackle, and they take a lot of pride in it. And so I think that's kind of been a lot of fun. The one thing I think we got to continue to improve at it from a teams unit standpoint, honestly, is probably our kickoff return. I think we have too good of players catching the ball to not be getting more positive returns. I think as the next half of the year, that's a real opportunity for us to really improve. We spent a lot of time this week on the bye week focusing on like details of fundamentals, just like not necessarily scheme, because it's more about like how do you position, how do you actually execute the blocks.
Sure.
Like the details of assignment there, I think can really springboard us, because we got some guys back there that catch the ball, the returners, they can go. They got to hit it, and we got to tighten some stuff up, and the schemes we're doing make sense. We just got to execute a little bit better.
Coach, you didn't know what he was doing there, but I think Donnie's realized that he's got a year of eligibility left. And with NIL, I think he was fishing to see if you needed some help, that Donnie might be able to come out there and punt a couple for you.
The first question is, like, what number do you want to be? Because that affects a lot.
So I think I was 35 when I played.
Okay, yeah, we can get some in the 30s done. Just don't say you want to be number 10. I'm going to have to break your heart.
No,
you ain't gonna be number 10.
Well, I've got one more question for you. This is more, you mentioned the fundamentals.
Yep.
And I've seen this in a lot of games. I saw it again in the Louisiana Tech game the other night.
Yep.
Towards the end of the game, the player coming in, defensive player coming in, helmet down in a severe injury.
Yeah.
What, on techniques, what do y'all teach the players to help try to keep that from happening?
You know what? I think it's been interesting. A lot of football, the tackling has changed and how they teach. A lot of people have gone, and we've done this too, of really looking at how they tackle in rugby to being much more of a transition to how we need to tackle in football, like how you leverage the football, using your shoulders. But the biggest thing is to see what you hit. That's the coaching point. So through all the drills we do in the off season, even when they're working out or doing, change of direction drills or whatever, you have a tendency to look at the ground. I'll tell them, guys, the ground's not going to move. If the ground moves, we got other issues. Football's the least of your
You're
problems.
playing in California.
Yeah, football's the least of your problems if the ground's moving, brother. They got to have their eyes up and see what they hit. That eliminates a lot of a lot of injuries to see what they hit, and just educating guys on how to play and play with bent knees and then using their shoulders and wrapping up. And I think our coaches do a really good job of teaching tackling. I think we practice tackling a lot during the week. We probably tackle more in live situations during the week than most teams. Like we do good on good, let the guys tackle, because our ball carriers have to learn how to break tackles, and our defensive players have to learn how to make tackles. Because ultimately, football is about the tackles you make and the tackles you break. That's what it all comes down to. There's a lot of ways to get to it, but that's really what it comes down to. And so I think that's why we've been I think it's helped us on defense. It's why we've been a good defensive team. We have good players, but we tackle a lot. It's a point of emphasis for us. So,
Coach, one of the things that I've kind of looked at the last few years, and I've really appreciated too about what you've done for this program is, and I've said it I think last year on Twitter just because I was like, man, it's such a cool stat for me, is that every single season you've been here, the record's improved.
yeah.
And you kind of came in at a very tumultuous time,
Yeah.
COVID and all the other things going on, and how they were shaking up the football schedule and trying to rebuild a team during that, and then taking it to where you have today. What do you feel like has really led you to grow this program and then sustain a winning culture?
You know what? It's interesting. I've had two different coaches have asked me this, like in pregame, just kind of talking, and because you can see our guys, because they're older, you can see like they're a lot bigger, stronger, faster. Like they look different. You can just look at them and tell. If you have eyes, you can tell. And so people have asked, and I think the biggest thing for us, and I told everybody this, is we've been non-compromising on what our standards are. And I tell them from the beginning, like, this is our vision for the program, right? Our vision is we want to make playing football at Maryville College one of the greatest experiences of your life as we pursue Christ, pursue a degree, pursue a conference championship, and pursue the national championship. So every decision we make as it relates to football is going to do one of those four things. If it's not going to do one of those four things, we ain't going to do it. We're wasting our time. And then we don't hide the fact that it's going to be hard. This is the hardest small college program in the country. So if you don't want to work hard and you don't want to train and you don't want to practice, I'm not for you. So please don't come here, right? And I think it's easy for us as coaches, and people hear this all the time. I think people have got to understand, though, I think it's a perfect parallel for high school football, college football, no matter the level, is that for the players, football is always going to be a game. It's always going to be a game, and that's important. I want it to be a game. I want them to have a lot of joy in that. I want them to feel like, hey, I'm using the gifts and talents God's given me, and this is my way to glorify Him because He allowed me to be aggressive. So I'm going to be really aggressive because it made me that way. That's great. But I ask all the players to respect me and the other coaches enough to know that it's not a game for me. This is life and death for me because this is how we feed our families. So if you don't want to do all the things we're asking you to do, this program ain't for you. Go somewhere else. Well, guess what? You look up, and in 4 years, everybody understands exactly what you want, and they've all signed up for that. So they're a lot of fun to coach because they're all on the same page.
Sure.
And so I think it's helped us. That's why our retention's been so high, is they know exactly what they're getting into. We don't act like it's not going to be that hard and then surprise, here you are at 6 o'clock in the morning. No. Here's our schedule. You better be a morning person. Like, get used to it. This is how we operate here, I think that's helped us as much as anything. And then finding, capable students.
Yeah.
That's important, guys that can do the schoolwork, that understand. I think when you look at small college, it's the biggest thing to find is, does the family value the college experience, as a family? Is it a familial decision? If they do, the kid will be successful. They'll stick around because college is hard no matter where you go, no matter how good you were a student in high school. It's going to be hard. You've never been in college. And they get there, and then they get smacked in the face with like, oh man, I got to write these papers and this is so challenging and yada yada yada. And if they don't have parents at home, no, you're not quitting. No, you're staying. They're not going to be successful. But that's what ends up being successful. That's what helps us. Yeah.
It all boils down to dedication from a lot of people.
A lot of people. It is a familial decision that we're all going to do this together to make sure that Junior's successful when he goes.
Last question. I know we probably got to go. So Donnie,
No, we got a little bit of time. But go ahead.
I could talk Scots football for a while. I could talk Scots in general for a while. But, Coach, the other thing, too, that I feel like has really led to success across the board, just from the time that I've spent on the campus the last few seasons, is there's a winning culture throughout the campus.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about what baseball just did this past spring, soccer and the sustained success Coach Fernandez has had. You think about Coach Placeris, Coach Trevelyan. I think it helps not only when you have other like-minded coaches that have that winning mentality and that culture that they want to have, that helps make each coach better, but also just in the athletic program and in the school itself, and now moving to the SAA last season in the USA South. I mean, the SAA came calling for a reason, and it's because Maryville College has built themselves into what they have now across the board. Can you talk a little bit about just how having, to me, those people around you and what those other coaches and the success of those programs has done for you?
Yeah, you know what? I think the strength of our department, I believe right now, is that we have a lot of really good coaches. And we don't have a coach that's in over their head at any program. Every coach we have knows what they're doing, has a clear plan, works really hard, and knows how to identify and retain and recruit and develop players relative to what their sport is. And so I think that it's led to a lot of success across the board. And, you know, like the tide lifts all the ships, right? And so I think as our players see other teams be successful, they want to be more successful. I think us starting fast last year, as other teams saw our success, it allowed them to be more successful. You know, I think one of the most amazing stories of our college last year was our softball team. They had 2 top 10 teams in the country in the league, and they went down there and won that tournament and had them on the ropes and almost came out of the super regional. I mean, I think Coach Moore does a phenomenal job. I mean, she's a winner. I think a lot of our coaches are winners, and they know what it takes to put that stuff together. And I think we're all excited about this move to the SAA. It's going to be with more kind of like-minded schools. I know a lot of our older alumni, they're excited about this because this is who they played when they were there. You know, a lot of times people hear like, what the heck is whatever school we're playing? Like, they didn't exist when I was playing. And so now they know who Center is. They know who Millsaps is. They know who Rhodes is. They know who Sewanee is. That's who we want to play. So we're excited about that chance. I mean, it's going to be a real challenge. And I'm excited for us as a program to kind of be the first one to do it as we go through in phases. I know our guys are really looking forward to that opportunity to go play some really, really good teams. But it ain't going to be that big of a difference between the league we're in now, quite frankly. I think probably the middle to bottom half of the new league is going to be better than the middle to bottom half of this league. But the top end of our league that we're in now and the top end of the SAA, there's a negligible difference. I mean, it is not that big of a difference.
Coach, also, it's still early in the season, at least conference-wise. What are the prospects? Because right now you're tied with Brevard on the top. What is the prospects of that being completed?
Of us playing Brevard?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a conference commissioner issue. I know it's going to be tight. I know we did kind of rework some of our tie-breaking scenarios, not necessarily any of the down the line if you have the same record, but it was more about if 2 teams have the same number of losses, but one team has played more games than the other one, which I felt like I was glad that we did it. It kind of offered us a little bit of protection so we don't get punished, because we probably are not going to be able to make the game up, which was honestly, I know that was we were really sad for Brevard, really sad for, I got kids from Western North Carolina and a lot of kids from Northeast Tennessee on our team. Like, we were going through a lot. I know their kids were going through a lot. We all wanted to play that game. There's not anybody involved in either program that didn't want to play that game. I know mine were ready to go, and I was really disappointed because they were going to play really great. They were going to play great. We had a great week. They were going to play great. But now it's all about we can control the things that we can control, right? And that's our attitude, energy, and effort as we prepare for the rest of the games, right? And, we've had a good week this bye week, but, man, it's, I love that we're playing this game next week, that we're playing Huntington on the third Saturday in October, because I explained to people, having been on both sides of this rivalry, if you don't understand, it is like Tennessee, Alabama. That's what it is. It is super intense, and it means a whole lot to the alumni that are 2005 and later. This game, this is the one. And for every one of their alumni, because that's about how long they've been playing, this is the game. This is the one. And so I know our guys are really excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. We get them to come up here, and we got to win some of these more. We got to win it more to make it a really good. I know they want to win, we want to win, but we got to win more of it to really make it a lot of fun. But it's going to be super intense, and it's going to be a real challenge for us.
Two 2-0 teams that, again, control the controllables. That's a game you need to win if you want to stay at the top of the conference.
And Coach, I think you're absolutely right, except that Tennessee, Alabama did not share nearly as much coaching staff over the course of their rivalry as you all have.
Well,
because there are ties that have gone back and forth from day one.
Yeah,
with those programs.
Yeah. But you can look at Coach Pruitt was here, and a lot of that staff turnover. And then even I want to say Coach Dickey was down in Alabama, and Coach Cutcliffe was an Alabama guy. That there's a lot more ties than you really think about when you really dial it up. But I do know this, that while I spent some time down there and I learned a lot and heard a lot of my voice, figured out what kind of coach I wanted to be, I give Coach Turk credit for that. I am a dyed-in-the-wool son of Appalachian East Tennessee guy, and I got a whole lot of East Tennessee guys on this team that really want to win that game, I can assure you. They really want to win that game, I can promise you.
And that's coming up on next Saturday, and following that's Methodist for homecoming.
Correct.
I want to say your math is really good on this, because when Maryville joined the USA South, I remember the story that ran in the paper. Maryville's football history was longer than the combined football histories of all the USA South members when you added them up.
Yeah,
at that time.
That probably makes sense.
That's a totally different league than what we see now. But that 20 years ago, it was smaller, and I think most of the current ODAC was in the USA South.
Yeah, there's been a lot of it's just kind of the way it's happened. There's been a lot of changeover, and and we're excited. that's traditional rivals, and that's what makes college football special. And it's going to be next Saturday will be it'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be probably the best of what small college football has to offer. It really has. I'd encourage anybody to come out and watch us. It should be a lot of fun, and it feels like it's been forever since we've been at home, and it's been a long time. I know our guys are itching to get out there and go play.
Yeah, last time they were out there, the grass was green on Honecker Field.
Yeah, I know.
Now it's got kind of a brownish color.
Well, it's going to be green again. We overseeded it with rice, so it's going to be back.
All right.
Popping through again, man. Alan's been out there grinding all week. He's been grinding on it.
Well, go out and see the Scots. You've got two great opportunities coming up. Coach, we appreciate you coming in and visiting with us, because
absolutely,
it is bye week, so it is like the one break you get, so we appreciate you spending the time.
Absolutely.
But we're going to go ahead and turn the page and announce the Anderson Lumber Company Player of the Week when we come back. You're listening to the Go-To Sports page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
The Roger L. Newman Company began in 1984 with a vision of providing Blount County with excellent heating and cooling service. Mr. Newman also wanted a real business. No gimmicks and no high-pressure sales. They just fix it or replace it. They want to stay within your budget and make you comfortable. Their motto still stands true today. Call us first, we'll be there. Call Roger L. Newman Company at 982-5446 or visit online at rogerlnewman.com. Cooler temperatures are approaching. Upgrade your furnace now for as little as $50 a month. For over 50 years and 3 generations, the people of Blount County have trusted Stevenson Tire with their vehicles and their families. Our mission has always been simple: to provide quality products at reasonable prices with exceptional customer service. Featuring tire products from Michelin, BF Goodrich, Uniroyal, Bridgestone, Firestone, and Yokohama, Stevenson Tire also offers alignment and brake services at affordable prices. Stevenson Tire Company, 2411 East Broadway Avenue in Maryville. Call 983-1621 or online at stevensontire.net.
And welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. This is Marcus Fitzsimmons filling in for Mike Edwards. The Greenfield Gunner is recuperating, we hope. And along with the rest of our broadcasting crew, it's time for the Sports Page Player of the Week, sponsored by Anderson Lumber Company, where quality service is always a priority. Proudly serving Blount County for over 75 years.
And I just want to interject here that you're listening to WKCE 92.5 FM and 1180 AM. It is mid-century radio.
It's great music.
It
when
is
we're
great.
not on, you can sing along with anything on this station.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm surprised they don't put
Good
it on
stuff.
here in Bluetick because sing-alongs go along with pizza to
They
me.
do,
I mean,
indeed.
And they're already grilling stuff up. I can already smell it. It's starting to make me hungry again. That's the worst part about hosting is from the hosting seat, you can smell the kitchen better than any other seat.
You can
And
indeed.
you know when they start putting the chicken and stuff on the grill and start getting it ready. But we're joined this morning. We have a special guest, and they're stopping by with a little bit of time to prepare, but they're headed to a big region tournament appearance. We're joined by Maryville volleyball. Coach Chris Hames has brought a couple of the Lady Rebels with her this morning. Maryville won its way into the region semifinals coming up on Tuesday against Clinton, despite being the number 4 seed in the district tournament, because only the top 2 would move on. And, Coach, thanks for coming in this morning, because I know it's been a long week for you, even though everybody else is on fall break. You all have been busy.
Yes, we have. And obviously we know coming into the season that districts is always over our fall break. So we really don't have a fall break. And obviously the last couple, us 4 years, we've made it to regions. So we literally have no fall break. We play on Tuesday. We'll practice Monday and Tuesday morning. So the kids know that. And obviously it's a little bit different the last couple of years. We've been number 1 in the district. We've had pretty easier road, and our district again is really, really strong, one of the top districts in Tennessee. So we knew that it was going to be tough. There's some really good players. We have some new senior leadership, and obviously Maddie and Shani and Sadie Arcetta, they're a big role in our success. And I would say we've had some bumps in the road. We played in again a really tough schedule. We're probably a little bit over 500, but you got to prepare yourself because you have to win a good game. And we came in the 4th. We lost 3 5-setters in districts this year. All of them we had chances to swing. So we knew we were there, and we knew that, like I've always said, you got to be good in October and you got to win the right games. And we beat Hardin Valley, we beat Farragut, and then we turned around and beat Bearden. And winning those 3 matches and kind of putting us in the chance to know that we were going to make it out was good. And it was a very emotional week. We practiced in the morning. We played really, really tough games. So it was pretty exhausting. I know I was exhausted, and I wasn't even playing. But the girls really turned it on. Obviously, our 2 outsides, Maddie and Shani, were just they're getting probably every ball, if not every other ball. So they took a lot of swings, and they really kind of put us in that position.
And you've mentioned them, but go ahead and introduce them for the people listening. And when you get introduced, wave to the camera up there so they can see if people. But who are they, and what are they doing for you?
So this is Shani McClellan. She's one of my outside, and then Maddie Bethea is my other outside. Shani's played middle for us. Maddie actually played middle for us last year. So Shani, last year I moved her to the outside, and obviously Maddie, I've moved to the outside too. But they're both very athletic terminal hitters, and they're both playing pretty much 6 rotations, so there's a lot of pressure on them in serve receive and defense and stuff. But they've really, like I said, we've had probably 20 different lineups this year. But we've kind of found one we think that we've been successful, and obviously these 2 have been a big part of that.
And they go by, that's what they go by, because our roster says something completely different when we look at it.
Yes.
But that's Shani and Maddie, is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but it seemed like during district tournament, there was a lot of swings going to these 2. If one was not there, the other one was there on that outside corner, and that was where you were going to. 90% of the time, that was where you were trying to put it. Is that where you've been trying to get to all season, or is that the development you've kind of found that this is what works for us
I
at
think
this point?
a little bit of both. Obviously, I mean, they're two seniors. In our Bearden match that we won in 5, I mean, Maddie had 24 kills and Shenny had 33. So it kind of gives you, and I think everyone else probably had about 5. And we do have other hitters that can score. It's just, I mean, if you don't pass well, that usually 9 times out of 10 the ball is going outside. Shenny does hit some back row as well, so she's not only getting the ball in the front row and the back row. And typically, if you watched any kind of high-level volleyball, the terminal hitters, especially in women, are the outside hitters. They're getting 90% of the out-of-system balls, which in volleyball it's over 50. I mean, almost 80% of balls are out-of-system. So that's where they're going. Probably, are we setting them too much? Maybe, yeah. But I mean, we're in a situation that they've kind of got us to where we are, and so we know it's successful. We didn't play great against Farragut, and they literally set every ball to the outside as well. So we just couldn't stop them. We have beaten them twice before, actually 3 times before, and 2 times they didn't have their setter who ended up playing in that game. So, I mean, like I said, we live and die with our outsides. We got a freshman middle that plays all the way around. Our middle was she's been there from the beginning, but I mean not as terminal as our 2 outsides. And Milo, who's on the right, kind of came off an injury that kind of set her back. So she's getting there, but we obviously need other hitters, but these 2 have been really our go-to people.
Well, they made it really difficult because we've only got 1 plat.
Oh.
So we had to kind of look at it, and I had to go down. I had to look at the kill sheet to come up with, from that Bearden game. So we have it for Shenny, the player of the week.
Yes, thank you.
And you can. Anderson Lumber Company thinks they bring the wood, and so do you. And that's actually my first question to you is, how hard do you hit that ball? Because I saw some of those things ricochet off of blocks and go not into the other court, across the gym and off the wall on the far side. How much power do you bring on that swing?
I'm not sure. I just kind of put everything I have into it. I try to get a kill every time I go up and hit the ball. So, yeah.
And does coach call like where you should be trying to kill? Because you seem to have a very good touch to go cross, but also go straight down the line.
Sometimes we'll talk about it before the game if we've seen the team a lot or if we know what they're doing. And so if there's a shorter blocker like on the pin or on the right side, I'll usually go line most of the time. And if there's maybe a shorter middle or a better option to go cross, then maybe my libero will say it or maybe one of the coaches on the side will say it. So that's kind of how I decide. And
when you all kind of rotate in or out, how much do you all share information between as you two trying to kind of trade places as to what they are putting up there in front of you? Like, do you talk about how they're trying to block or not block?
Yeah, we'll usually come in as a team, and so we'll tell our passers where the ball will going, and we'll kind of communicate if there's a shorter blocker or a bigger blocker, or if there's any spots open, in the middle of the court, and we'll just tell them if you can tip there, mm-hmm. If you can swing, go ahead and swing.
And Maddie, I'm gonna put you on the spot to speak for the whole team. Is that okay? Okay. What was that moment like on Wednesday night when you all rallied in that 5th game for those 4 consecutive points? What was that feeling like?
It was really emotional because I was Shinny got put in the front row, and I was like, Shinny, hey, we need you right here. Please, I'm counting on you because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing at the time. So I was just really it was, I don't know how to explain it, but it was very emotional because I definitely cried after that. So
it looked like everybody, that was kind of like a moment. You all were very nonchalant after you beat Farragut, but after you beat Bearden, there seemed to be a lot more emotion going on. Yeah. Was that because it was Bearden, or because it locked up region?
Definitely because the last time we played Bearden, we lost to them, so we kind of came back we're in their home gym now, so let's go after it. And we could have been done after 3 sets, but since we decided to take it to 5, it was just a really big moment. So.
and I'll put this for both of you. You're both seniors, right? So there's an expectation with this program. Like there's a streak going on. It's like football went through at a point. You all are expected to be at region now. So was there pressure? Like, is there a point in the season you're like, we've got to do some things if we're going to meet those goals?
Yeah, we definitely had a goals meeting with our other coach, Madison Coulter, about where we wanted to make it. So we knew we wanted to make it just as far as we made it in other years. So we probably went into districts not even knowing we would make it that far. But for us to actually make it, it was really big.
Coach, I've noticed that the theme hearing these young ladies talk during the course of the interview today, they talk about communication. How important in volleyball is communication among your players?
It's huge, and obviously I yell it all the time for not talking, because you can win matches and lose matches by not talking, and obviously communicating together as a team and covering is a big part of it. And so I think that's something that we really kind of focused on the last half, is like, hey, we're going to win together and we're going to lose together, and a lot of that is talking and communicating and high-fiving you, whether you make a good play or you don't. So I think they've done a really good job in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you've kind of see that. We went on a really big win streak before we lost to Farragut, and I think that a lot of that was just the communication.
Yeah, you talk about that win streak, Coach, and if I read it correctly when it came to the record, 11 and 15, and then you reeled off 9 straight wins. I mean, it makes me think right now during playoff baseball what they say about the Tigers. Somebody let the Tigers get hot. Well, someone let the Rebels get hot. You guys got going and started running the table up until that last loss. So can you talk about what was the turnaround you feel like at that point that led you all to have that success?
We always talk you have to be good in October, and I think we really kind of to be honest, we hadn't practiced in about 3 weeks when we kind of had some downtime, and we kind of got back in the gym. We focused on the stuff that we know that makes it successful, and I think that was a big part too. And we kind of sat down. It's like, hey, this is what we need to do to be successful. And I think we finally figured out a lineup that was working, and I think that was really kind of the big thing for us.
Coach, I introduced y'all saying you were the number 4 seed for district, and truthfully, there was a lot of tie breaking that went on. It could have literally a point here or there, and you all could have been the 2. Was it a little bit different feeling and give you something new to do, to be the hunters rather than the one that everybody else was hunting in the tournament?
Yes, definitely, because I think, playing Hardin Valley and then playing Bearden and even playing Farragut, we beat Farragut in 5, but they killed us in the first 2 sets. So we kind of were the underdog, and I like that. And I knew that those were games we could win, and I knew that we could be in this situation. So really, for us, it was, hey, the pressure's on them, not on us this time. So it was a little bit different mentality, and we weren't meant to win. It's a toss-up for Hardin Valley, but the other 2 we weren't meant to win. So I think just coming in with the mentality, hey, we're the underdog this time, and we were gonna show them that we should have been the 2 seed. We could have been the 1 seed. So yeah, I'm just really proud of them that we get it. We're still alive. And
speaking of alive, so Tuesday night, if I read this right, it's all going to be at Farragut.
Yes.
So you all play Clinton, Farragut's playing Oak Ridge.
Yep.
Whoever survives those, you're going to play for the region title, but
yep.
more importantly, you're playing for you've got
yes.
a sectional spot.
Yes.
Is that how it's going to break down?
Yes, that's correct. So again, that first game is important, and then from that point, obviously that second match is important if whoever wins that hosts the sub-state, which we have in the past. But just that's another. That's another tick. Hey, let's see if we can get to sub-state. That's obviously a goal for us.
And when you've played some of the events you've played in, played Sunsphere, played up in Gatlinburg, those kind of formats this is when that kind of pays off, as you've been there and done that sort of thing.
Yeah, it is, and I think we do have the advantage that we've won pressure games and we've been in that pressure situation. So I know that we've played some really tough teams, and we're hoping that will benefit us for the first match on Tuesday.
All right, well, Coach, we appreciate you guys coming in. Congratulations for our Player of the Week. Y'all can share that if you want. I don't know how you break it. Brian makes really good signs. He just doesn't give us enough of them. But anyway, thank you for coming. Wish you all the best of luck. We do have a standing provision. We always like to have guests back when they bring their state championship trophies with
Okay,
them. So
I'm still working on that one.
if you can do that, like I know you need extra motivation to want to win state, but you could come back
Bring
and
it
visit
back.
us on a Saturday morning with your state championship trophy. Would love to have you.
All right. That's squad goals right there.
All right, time for a break, and when we return, it's the Boyd Sports Spotlight. You're listening to the Sports Page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports. Thank you so much, guys.
Coach, I was going to tell you my.
For 90 years, Anderson Lumber Company in Alcoa has proudly served and supported our local communities. Locally owned, so the money made here stays here. Whether you're renovating a kitchen, bath, new floors, doors, or windows, Anderson Lumber is so much more than a lumber store and can take care of you from design to install. We welcome you to visit Anderson Lumber in Alcoa for all your home's needs, or shop over 67,000 items online at AndersonLumberCompany.com. Anderson Lumber since 1925. Aubrey's is known for real comfort, real food, real good. But remember, Aubrey's is also really into Blount County. Aubrey's Maryville has been a strong supporter of local schools and sports programs for more than 15 years. From baseball to football, dance teams, and marching bands, Aubrey's has helped schools and youth programs generate thousands of dollars. It's easy for us to do because it's the right thing to do. So the next time you're looking to choose a place to eat, we hope you'll choose Aubrey's. Real comfort, real food, real good. See what's on the menu at aubreysrestaurants.com.
And welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in Maryville. This is Marcus Fitzsimmons filling in for the Greenfield Gunner. And normally we'd be talking to Donnie Moore for headlines at this point. And as it happens, we'll get to anyway because Donnie made that marathon drive yesterday back from Savannah on his annual hurricane hunting expedition. And Donnie, you've got some headlines for us. And I'm going to let you do your intro, and we're going to try to give you the best support we can.
Well, thank you, indeed. It is time for our weekly segment, Sports Headlines, brought to you, as always, by Fast Signs.
See, Heath practiced while
Getting
you were
better.
gone. Heath
Yeah.
practiced. Heath, you're going to need to ask for a raise. You're getting good at this.
It's getting to be a choir now,
Yes.
huh? Well, the Major League Baseball postseason is in full swing with two teams already inked in for the league championships, and in fact, now it's become 4, hasn't it? Well, 3.
Well, it's
3.
Yeah, we're almost down to 4 spots waiting on
Yeah.
that Guardians-Tigers.
In American League, anyway, yeah. The New York Yankees secured a spot in the ALCS by disposing of the Kansas City Royals 3-1. Also in the American League, the Detroit Tigers and the Cleveland Guardians battle today at 1:08 p.m. for the other ALCS spot. Let me interrupt myself here just a minute. How long has it been since we've heard of the Cleveland Guardians in the playoffs and the Detroit Tigers? And is there more parity in Major League Baseball now than maybe there's ever been, guys?
I think it's more secular.
Well, it could be.
I mean, you're good, and then you slump because that's the way the payroll structure is supposed to work. You can pay to win, but you're going to pay for it down the road, and you're going to slump, and then you can build back up. But
unless you're the Dodgers and the Yankees.
Yes.
Well, there's also that you can just spend your way out of any hole in a major market. Like I said, that's the way it was supposed to work.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, and I'll say it's been a while since Cleveland baseball has been in the postseason.
Oh, yeah.
Guardians is something new altogether.
Yes, it is. Well, anyway, the winner of that Detroit-Cleveland game today, the winner earns the right to take on the Yanks. The two teams will play in New York on Monday. And in the National League, New York Mets earned a spot in the championship series by whitewashing the Philadelphia Phillies 3-1 and will face the L.A. Dodgers, who broke a 2-2 deadlock with San Diego last evening. Beat them 2-0. I stayed up and watched that game. It was a good ball game.
I know who the networks are going to be rooting for.
Yeah, I'm sure you're
because
right.
as entertaining as it would be for one small segment of the country that has a lot of people living in it, no, Mets versus Yankees isn't the greatest World Series for everybody else, whereas Dodgers Yankees.
Dodgers, Yanks.
I think
Whole
everybody.
different ball
I think
game.
everybody in the country tunes into that one with
Yeah,
at least some casual interest.
Brings up some old memories of the old
It sure
Dodger
does.
Yankee series.
It sure does. Well, at any rate, the National League Championship Series will begin also in New York tomorrow evening. First game of the 2024 Fall Classic will occur on Friday, October 25th. So it's coming, guys. I mean, it's almost here. The end of the baseball season is almost upon us.
And, this is where I miss Coach Paleo being here. So there's a shout-out
Yeah.
for Charlie in a nice way. I know that
Yes.
doesn't happen often on this show.
Yeah, that's true.
But I always like his analysis and look at how these series can break down.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's been there, done that,
But, even though he always favors the pitchers over the hitting,
He does.
I think
see
the
that.
Dodgers would provide him an interesting contrast as to how their star power plays into it.
Yes.
And I thought their star power performed really well last night.
I
Both
agree.
sides.
I agree. Well, game one of the WNBA Finals went to overtime in New York, with the Minnesota Lynx taking a thriller over the New York Liberty 95-93. Game 2 is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m., also in New York. The series is a best-of-5 affair, but next season it's going to move to a best-of-7. So,
Continual WNBA expansion.
yeah,
We're going to extend the playoffs and we're adding franchises.
no doubt. No
No,
doubt.
and game one of the finals, Stewie had a chance to hit the final free throw and win the game, and she missed it. Went into overtime,
Yeah.
and then they lost. So I have to imagine Sunday that her and Sabrina Ionescu are going to be coming out firing.
I'd say you're right. Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays, has suffered severe damage to its roof as a result of Hurricane Milton. The Trop is the only field in Major League Baseball with a fixed roof. Imagine that. Officials say there were fortunately no injuries in the disaster.
And that was
Did you see video of it?
fortunate because that is actually one of the evacuation type centers.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
And
Yeah,
the
that was
supply
scheduled to be
centers.
due. Yeah, you're
And-
right.
And that's where people are supposed to go. So I've always wondered about the use of stadiums for that. I understand the logic, but also
Yeah, I do too.
we have also seen that stadiums tend to take damage during
Yes.
major weather events.
Boy, this one did.
The
Well,
Georgia
they-
Dome
Yeah.
Dome in a tornado
Yeah,
is
right.
another
Right.
example. But and we've seen it with snow in some of the northern stadiums,
Mhm.
the roofs. So I always get kind of leery when they talk about using those as where they're going to actually put people. I'm fine with supplies going there, but I'm always get leery about them putting people there during an emergency.
Well, let's move on. I've got a kind of an eclectic collection of headlines today. 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal is calling it a career. Nadal announced on Thursday that he will officially retire from playing professional tennis following the 2024 Davis Cup Finals in November. One of the greatest players of all time, Nadal, aged 38, has dealt with significant injuries in recent years. He has won the French Open an astounding 14 times.
Saw that.
Good grief. That's, he's earned his retirement, hasn't he?
He has, and it just wasn't shocking though.
No.
I mean, you knew it was coming. It was just a
Yeah,
matter of
you
when
did.
he was going to say, "All right, this is the
I've
actual
had
date,"
enough. Yeah.
because he's toyed
I'm
with the
hurting
date.
enough now.
I mean, we really didn't know if he was going to play some of the majors this year. It
I've seen
was,
that film too.
So
Yeah, right.
you knew that was coming. It's
Yeah,
just a
you
matter
did.
when he was going to say enough's enough.
Well,
That's
it was
true.
fun, too, to see him in the Olympics with the up-and-comer Alcaraz. And
Yes.
be able to play together. But you talk about the French Open. It's the reason they call him the King of Clay.
That's right. Roland Garros
Next up
Stadium.
is-
He ruled it, didn't he?
Yeah, so you had Federer, you have Nadal, and now
Yeah.
the last of the trio of the greats of this generation is Djokovic. And
That's
so
right.
Novak, I'm sure it'll be in the next couple of years. I bet we'll hear his
I'd say
retirement.
you're
I'm
right.
not even sure it's going to be a couple of years given his
Yeah.
health status.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
he's
he's
taken
beat up
he's
as
taken
well.
a lot of injuries this last 2 years that have slowed him down.
Hendrick Motorsports and Arrow McLaren announced that NASCAR Cup Series champion of 2021 is going to race in the Indy 500 in 2025, then make his second attempt at driving the Indy Charlotte double. Who am I talking about? Larson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larson.
Larson's going to try it again.
Yeah. He's going to make his second attempt at driving the Indy Charlotte double, completing 1,100 miles between the two races. Good grief. Both held on Memorial Day weekend. Last May, Larson's first attempt at the double was spoiled by inclement weather.
And
So,
that's the trick to
I
it.
hope it holds.
You need the right forecast working for you because you need good weather in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
if there's
you do.
bad weather, it's okay if that's over at Charlotte and delays that one. But you need that bump to get from out of the car onto the plane and from one track to the other. You need the delay on your North Carolina end. You don't need delays at Indianapolis.
Last year it was both. He had a storm system in Indy, but they went ahead and completed the race anyway, I think. And then as he flew to Charlotte, the storm system kind of followed him down there, and they didn't get to complete it. So, well, anyway. The postponed Tyson-Paul heavyweight match has been rescheduled for Friday, November 15th at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Former heavyweight boxer Mike Tyson will face off against influencer and boxer Jake Paul in one of the most anticipated fights of the year. Tyson has a 56-2 record with 44 knockouts, while Paul is 10-1. Now, the latest odds favor Jake Paul. Personally, I can't see that happening.
No, I don't. I wouldn't want to go against Tyson. Period.
You better believe it.
Even Tyson, he's close to 60 now.
Yeah.
I think he still got it.
I don't care. He could be chasing me in a ring on a walker. I'm still not going.
I'm not going to get in
I
that
didn't
ring.
say I was going to get in the ring, but I'm not an influencer.
I feel like Jake Paul may look like he has the upper hand early because of his youth and his quickness.
Yes.
But leave one opening for Tyson to lay up one of his punches on you, and we'll see how much longer Paul
I understand.
Devastating
I
puncher.
understand the draw and the hype that can go into an event like this. I just don't see 50,000 people filling a football stadium and a pay-per-view audience watching this thing.
Well,
I just
you
could
be right there.
I could see maybe like 10,000 seat Coliseum somewhere, but AT&T Stadium.
Well, I think the intrigue of this one, though,
that could look really, really empty.
I think the intrigue you got coming into this one, number one, it's Tyson. He's coming back, and to be able to see him. But for the boxing world, that longtime passionate fans too, I think they want to prove to people like Jake Paul the true skill that it took to be a really good boxer, as they feel like Paul just kind of came out of nowhere and was like, oh, I can pick up boxing and anybody can do it. And so I think for them, you're probably got a huge fan base of more of the older generation that's deep, passionate boxing, especially when it kind of hit its prime for a while of, hey, we want to see Tyson take care of him and show him there's a lot more to this game.
Well, Paul, who knows? He may pay his dues right here and become one of the, one of the greats.
He might lose an ear.
Or one of the victims.
He might lose an ear. That's right. Oh, goodness. Let's move to On This Day in Sports, October 12th. 1948, Hall of Famer Casey Stengel takes over as Yankees manager on this day, 1948. 1967, World Series news. Lou Brock steals World Series record 7 bases as St. Louis Cards beat the Boston Red Sox 7-2 at Fenway for a 4-3 series win. The MVP in that series, Cards pitcher Bob Gibson. Goodness.
Do you think we could see a repeat of the amount of stolen bases by Shohei if the Dodgers make it?
Yeah.
With the bases, being
Nothing's
a little bit
impossible
larger,
with
Shohei,
Ohtani.
Yeah, he's had a great season stealing bases.
1979, Celtics guard Chris Ford scores the first three-point shot in NBA history on this day, 1979. It was also the debut of Boston rookie Larry Bird.
And was Magic's
It was Magic's debut too.
Was his a day later or the day before?
It was. I think it was today too.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't put that down. Failed to mention that. 1982, Brewers' Paul Molitor gets a World Series record 5 hits in one game.
I liked watching him.
He was a great outfielder, wasn't he? Yeah. 2003, moved to 2003. German Ferrari F1 driver Michael Schumacher clinches his 4th consecutive World Drivers' Championship on this day. Birthdays today. 1932, Ned Jarrett was born. American auto racer, Motorsports Hall of Famer, and broadcaster, born in Conover, North Carolina. Ned Jarrett, he's an icon, isn't he? Mm-hmm. 1936, born on this day, Tony Kubek, baseball shortstop for the Yankees and sportscaster for many, many years, born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 1968, born on this day, Leon Lett, NFL defensive tackle and coach for the Cowboys, born in Mobile, Alabama. Leon Lett.
Saw him play a lot.
I did too, yeah. He was a good one. 1977, Bodie Miller, American alpine ski racer, won an Olympic gold in 2010, born in Easton, New Hampshire. And let's talk a couple of deaths on this day too. In 1999, Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, Basketball Hall of Fame center, played for the Warriors, the 76ers, and the Lakers, died of heart failure at the age of 63. Gone too soon.
Yes.
And in 2003, died on this day, Bill Shoemaker, an American Racing Hall of Fame jockey. He had in his career 8,833 wins. That's a lot of horses ridden, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And he died at the age of 72 in 2003. Well, that's all for this week's Sports Headlines, brought to you, as always, by Fast Signs. I'm Donnie Moore. Back at you, Marcus.
Well, thank you, Donnie. Always
welcome.
appreciate the best-smelling headlines delivered quickly. So, finish up some of our SEC conversation. UT talk from earlier in the opening segment, first hour. Boyd Spotlight today. We're going to put the Great Gator Hater celebration of 2024 on the spotlight. Florida visits number 8 Tennessee tonight at 7 on ESPN. Heath, if Tennessee stumbles again, does that move some of the fire away from Billy Napier and start one under Josh Heupel's recliner?
No, I think sorry to cool the flames, but I think the fire will only intensify for Billy Napier no matter what this season. Like we spoke about early in the show, even whether you win today or not, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU coming up next, followed by the last 2 games of the season, Ole Miss, Florida State. Like I said, I don't think Florida gets another win other than the possibility of today until the 30th of November when they play Florida State. I don't see any other team on that schedule Florida being able to overcome. Kentucky may be a decent game. I still think Brock Vandergriff and the Wildcats come away with that win. Look at Tennessee. I think no matter how this season slices and dices up, I think you look at the season as it's year 1 for Nico, trying to figure things out, trying to let him grow and develop, because there's so much promise and there's so much excitement behind what this kid can be, and I don't even think he's close to hitting that ceiling. So I think Tennessee's got some wiggle room. I think Heupel, especially after what he's done the last few seasons, has certainly got that grace period as well. I don't think the fire intensifies, but I don't think it's going to anyways. I think Tennessee has a great opportunity today to come away with a win. I think at worst, Tennessee finishes this season with 2 more losses to Alabama and Georgia, but I also think even if they split one of those, and the possibilities of potentially getting into the playoffs are super exciting to see what they could do. You'd really like to split those games. Alabama has to come to us, and the last time they came to Tennessee, I was there. I watched the students take the goalposts out. They walked right beside me as we were exiting Neyland Stadium. So, I'd love to see that today, but the focus, especially if you're Tennessee, has got to be today. I mean, you potentially overlooked Arkansas, and look what happened. While on paper, everything favors Tennessee today, there's just something crazy that happens when it comes to rivalry games that no matter who should win,
That's true.
Anything can happen. And so Tennessee's got to be locked in more than ever today for this big matchup.
Scott, we said a lot of these same things last year when Tennessee went down to Florida. Better offense, equal defense, everything going your way. And Tennessee went down there and couldn't run the ball, couldn't throw the ball, got embarrassed. What does Tennessee have to do today to keep that from happening again?
One of the things they're going to have to do, and I was listening to the interview on another station with Coach Heupel and so forth, but one of the things they talked about is they got to communicate better. The communication between the offensive line and the offense in general was horrible and caused a lot of problems for them. Communicate, be prepared for what you're going to see, because they've seen the Arkansas tape. They know what they're going to be doing, so they're going to have to take care of that, communicate with each other, and just make sure everyone is on the same page. And like Heath mentioned earlier also about the fact that the defensive backs are going to have to play a little bit tougher. The defensive line's doing good, but you're still going to have to watch that quarterback. You got a good running quarterback, you're going to have to watch him as well. So, again, overall, basically, communication is going to be the name of the game today.
Donnie, you may have missed some of it this week, but probably the most criticism we've heard of Coach Heupel since he's been here this week, talking about not running the tempo, that maybe he's second-guessing himself, things along that line. What would Tennessee need to do today against Florida, or tonight against Florida, to kind of silence some of that criticism outside of a win? Do they need to put on some style points? Do they need to go fast? Do they just need to win this one?
I don't think that Tennessee needs to worry about how badly they beat the Gators. We're playing in Neyland Stadium. Neyland Stadium is a place where Tennessee just doesn't lose, as far as that goes. Usually, I'm saying it can't happen, but I don't think it's going to. I think Tennessee, if Tennessee will just come into this with the mindset of let's just play Tennessee football tonight, and play at home in front of this raucous Vol crowd that they always have over in Neyland Stadium, then I don't think they'll have any trouble with the Gators.
Donnie, I feel like things I've heard a lot from coaches, especially this year, the different places I've been, whether it's been Alcoa or Maryville College or anywhere, is I've heard the coaches say we're focused on ourselves, right? And I think it's so easy to go, well, hey, how much time have you spent preparing for this team? How much time have you spent preparing for that team? And a lot of them, especially this year, maybe I've just heard it more than ever this season, but it just feels like the recipe for success has been when coaches have said, hey, yeah, we're going to focus on a few things that we need to prepare for that team, but our biggest focus right now is ourselves.
Exactly.
Alcoa specifically has had a couple bye weeks, some not their fault.
Yeah.
But when I've talked to Coach Nix about, does it give you extra time to prepare for that team? He's like, no, we're spending that week focused on ourselves. Mm-hmm. What can we do to improve as a football team, no matter who we play, that we can be better? And I think if you're Tennessee, that's kind of been where you needed to start your focus after what happened last week, because you really just kind of got away from Tennessee football. I mean, you look at Tennessee right now, according to NCAA.com, they are 5th in total offense in the nation, 519 yards of total offense per game.
Wow.
The only teams better, one of these was kind of interesting. The others made sense. Miami, Ole Miss, Boise State, Pittsburgh was the 4th team on the list, which that was the one that threw me off a little bit.
You have to look at Pittsburgh's schedule, and then that makes sense.
Well, agreed. But, yeah, the other 3 made sense. Boise State obviously has got a Heisman potential candidate at running back who's just unreal. They're calling him potentially the next Barry Sanders. So, and then you look defensively, number 2 in the nation in defense and yards allowed right now. The only team better is Ohio State, who paid NIL money and got half their team. So, I'm curious to see how they move throughout the rest of the season. The Gators, 59th in total offense in the nation, 97th in total defense. in the nation. So, I think the Vols have to focus on themselves. What can they correct? And then how can they continue to help this young quarterback grow and be able to find success?
Okay, so we got a couple minutes, so I'm going to let you do your picks, and you can give me some explanations why. But come Sunday morning, is Tennessee happy or is Tennessee crying? What's your pick? What's the outcome tonight?
I think Tennessee's happy. Donnie, you talked about playing in Neyland Stadium. Oh, man, you've got a night game in Neyland Stadium under the lights.
Yeah.
You got people pre-gaming since about noon, maybe even earlier. This is going to be one hyped crowd tonight. And it's not just hyped because it's a Neyland night, but it's a hyped crowd because you're playing your bitter rival in the Florida Gators. So I think this is going to be a raucous crowd that's going to be, it's going to feel electric in there. I can't wait to be in that environment this evening. I think Tennessee comes away from this one happy. I think it takes a little bit of the sting off of last week's loss to Arkansas. We start finding Tennessee being Tennessee once again, and then looking forward to what Tennessee needs to do in preparation for the third Saturday in October.
Scott, how are you feeling?
I would like to be happy. However, the last time I went to a night game with Heath on a game that was against a rival because Lane Kiffin was in, we lost to Ole Miss. So I'm going with reservations.
Is that when you got that shoulder injury from
Probably.
the ketchup bottle?
I was going to say, you got to take home a mustard bottle, though. You got a souvenir from the game.
Yeah, exactly. And a golf ball, too.
No, we didn't see the mustard, but I will say we got hit with a couple of Dasani water bottles in that game.
Yeah.
And we ended up leaving late in the game because we were like, okay, we got to get out of here. But, yeah, that game was not fun. But the crowd was electric. I think Tennessee's grown a lot since that game.
I hope so.
And I think it's going to be a good one.
You mean grown as in they've gotten better arms so they can get it past
We've
your
definitely
seats?
been working on it.
Donnie, what's your picks? Tennessee happy tomorrow?
I think so. I don't think there's no question about it in my mind. I think there have been some drops and missed connections between Iamaleava and the receivers, but here again we're playing at home, and I think that's going to be the key right there. I think things are going to click tonight offensively. Don't worry about the defense. I don't worry about Tennessee defensively. They come to play. So I think things are going to click, and I think Tennessee's going to roll.
All right. Last week I gave Tennessee a 4 out of 10 as a chance to win. I'm going higher this week. I'm going to give them 6.5, and the reason being is I feel like Florida was last year's Arkansas, and that it was the road game that Tennessee should have won and they didn't, and I think that's what happened. And I want to imagine Tennessee's going to take it out on Florida this year for both that and for last week with what happened.
So a 65% chance to win tonight, right?
Yes, and I would go much higher, except I'm also I was a UT student in the 90s, and we had really good teams that could not get past okay, a little better than average Florida teams.
That's true.
So I always will carry that seed of you can feel really good and still lose by 28 to Florida. So
Well, Marcus,
I'm giving them 65%.
Something's got to give tonight. Tennessee 2-0 at home, Florida 1-0 on the road. So we'll find out which one changes tonight.
Okay, time for a break. And when we return, it's the Shelter Insurance Bold Predictions. You're listening to the Sports Page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
The Roger L. Newman Company began in 1984 with a vision of providing Blount County with excellent heating and cooling service. Mr. Newman also wanted a real business. No gimmicks and no high-pressure sales. They just fix it or replace it. They want to stay within your budget and make you comfortable. Their motto still stands true today. Call us first, we'll be there. Call Roger L. Newman Company at 982-5446 or visit online at rogerlnewman.com. Cooler temperatures are approaching. Upgrade your furnace now for as little as $50 a month. For over 50 years and 3 generations, the people of Blount County have trusted Stevenson Tire with their vehicles and their families. Our mission has always been simple: to provide quality products at reasonable prices with exceptional customer service. Featuring tire products from Michelin, BF Goodrich, Uniroyal, Bridgestone, Firestone, and Yokohama, Stevenson Tire also offers alignment and brake services at affordable prices. Stevenson Tire Company, 2411 East Broadway Avenue in Maryville. Call 983-1621 or online at stevensontire.net.
And welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. This is Marcus Fitzsimmons filling in for the Greenfield Gunner. And it's time for this week's Shelter Insurance Bold Predictions. And that's always a sign we're getting towards the end. And I got to tell you guys, I'm already watching. The TVs are on here at Bluetick. I see people in orange and white pre-gaming with pizza before they head off to the stadium, getting that good foundation of meat and cheese in before you go down to Knoxville and perhaps indulge in some adult beverages. So, I always love the fact that we're here, except that it doesn't do much for my man figure as to eating here every week. It's smelling good. I do want to I did have a note here that I was supposed to shout out earlier. If you're in the Vol Navy or you are going down to visit people in the Vol Navy, you need to stay out of the water. TWRA and TVA have both put out warnings about Fort Loudon that the debris from the storms is in Fort Loudon at the moment. There could be some interesting stuff floating around that is washed downstream at this point. So if you're boat hopping and get a hand in or whatever, be sure you wash that hand before you start grabbing a hot dog with it. Just be safe and be careful, because we don't want a bold prediction about how many people might get diphtheria at the UT game. As we noted earlier, Mike is out this week, which means I get to call the closing game for the Shelter Insurance. And you're going to need a policy on this one, because when I get to pick the game, we play my favorite of what's more likely. Two Hive hasn't been here for this yet, so I'll tell you how this works. I'll give you two options, and you tell me which is more likely to happen and why.
Okay.
And Heath, you're going to get the first one.
Oh boy.
Are you ready? All right.
All right.
Heath, when we watch the ticker for scores during the Tennessee game tonight, or in your case, watching what shows up on the stadium on the sidelines, what's more likely? That LSU and Ole Miss will be going to overtime with the score exceeding 100 combined points, or the Kentucky and Vanderbilt will be going to overtime tied at 0? Which of those is more likely?
Ooh, Kentucky Vanderbilt.
Really?
Yeah, I think that one. I think I could see that happening between those two. Ole Miss, and LSU. I don't think their defense is as good as they've been in the past. Kiffin likes to move the ball with that Ole Miss offense. I could see that one potentially ended up being a shootout, number 9 versus number 13. But Vanderbilt and Kentucky, you've got a Kentucky team that is just looking to continue to try to rebuild and show what they have, and Stoops do what he can with this Wildcat team. But you've got a Vanderbilt team that's coming off a high, and I don't think they're done. I think this team is looking to continue that. Clark Lee, I think, has kind of got them refocused and saying, hey, I think even in the postgame, he was like, hey, we're going to enjoy it right now, but this is not what we came for. We've got so much more left. So I think he's got this team riding a high right now that we're going to see on the field. Diego Pavia, I think, is going to be coming out looking to do the same thing he did to Alabama to Kentucky. But it could be one of those where both teams kind of bend but don't break. You see them kind of move the ball down the field, have some success, and then not really be able to quite finish and close it out. Kind of that back and forth, grinded out game. And honestly, I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but I'm kind of hoping for a Commodores win. I want to see them continue to pick it up. So I don't mind when Kentucky loses, and normally I don't mind when Vanderbilt loses. But play Vanderbilt later in the year. Maybe the stakes a little bit higher. That'd be a pretty interesting game in Nashville.
I think
you know what our good friend Coach Trail would say about this game, don't you?
What's that?
He would call it the Battle of the Mullets.
I don't think a mullet ever applies to Vanderbilt.
Country music?
No, I just don't think you can.
Well, mullet in Coach Trail's vernacular is teams that don't matter.
Well, this is true. I always say it's two mules fighting over a carrot in the field.
Yeah, there you go.
But, that's kind of the way I feel about most of the Big Ten. Scott, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Tomorrow morning, when you open the Daily Times, look at the Tennessee-Florida box score. Is it more likely that Tennessee ran for 300 yards tonight or passed for 300 yards tonight?
Passing.
Passing. Immediate answer.
I agree.
We're pretty quick around here.
I agree.
Yeah. Nico, I think, is going to have a better game than he had against Arkansas. He's got his receivers back. All three of them were hurt in the Arkansas game. They're ready to play today, and that whole unit wants to prove something. I mean, Tennessee's going to run the ball. They're going to get their yardage, but this passing game is what I'm looking for.
Sure.
The only time Nico has thrown for 300 yards a season is against who? Do you know? First game of the season, UT Chattanooga.
Against the Mocs.
The second highest was 211 against NC State.
I agree. I think they're going to open it up tonight through the air.
See, now Donnie's chimed in, which means he's now fair game to play.
Lay it on me.
Okay, Donnie. We have hopes that Mike will return next week.
We do.
And that I will be back in a normal chair, and Mike will be back in the command seat. If that happens when Mike returns, when Mike is sitting here next week, is it more likely that he will be talking about Georgia having another player facing reckless driving charges, or that another Power 4 program will have joined the list of those who had a starter announcing they're sitting out the rest of the season to transfer? Which situation is more likely to have happened and be on Mike's list next week?
We may have a. Yeah, I'm thinking it's the latter.
You think we're going to see somebody else sit out to transfer and announce that they want the NIL?
He hates that, and he's gonna rip that.
I think
that may be in letter rip.
That could be his letter
if he's
rip.
back. Yeah, his segment called letter rip, because he may rip them.
I mean, because we've seen that happen.
He doesn't like it.
We had the UNLV thing, but now we've got 2 Iowa players announcing that they're done and they're going to transfer, and they're not going to be playing the rest of the year. And I guess that you're preserving eligibility, right? But
yes, that's what.
So you got a season, but I mean, truly, you're trying to get more NIL money with a transfer.
Well, I'm kind of curious. I think the reason you saw so much at that time period was around that 4-game mark. So you play 4 games, and then you could keep your eligibility.
Right.
So I don't know how much more we'll see it as the season progresses versus where we saw it kind of right in that timeline that we saw it just kind of really pop up everywhere.
I think if we had anybody that missed the first game or missed a game for injury, we've still got a bubble around them. I think we still got another week or 2 of it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Wonder if because they're eliminating or have eliminated the letter of intent, they're going more with a contract with the school now. If in the future that might stop.
It could very well. If you throw in the fact that a lot of players are going to opt out of bowl games, then that's going to happen. I promise.
That's going to be in the NIL contracts in the future.
Well,
it could be.
The hope is, too, that with the expanded playoff, that you're seeing less of that because they're trying to keep more things going and more players involved so that some of your big-time playmakers are still playing and not sitting out.
Sure.
So I think the hope was by expanding, making it 12. Now some of those teams that maybe were on the verge, like you look at Florida State last year, they didn't make the top 4, and they pretty much depleted their roster playing Georgia in the bowl game, and Georgia just ran over them because they didn't have anybody left. So I think that's the hope is you see less of that this season.
And you could be. I still think you're going to see, if it keeps on its current path, that your NIL is going to start including things like bonuses for playing in the bowl games, bonuses for making grades, bonuses for not getting arrested. It's going to have more. I mean, it's in NFL contracts. You have a morality clause.
Yes.
I think that those if you're going to be professional and get professional type compensation, you're going to start getting professional type requirements put down on paper that were up until this point were just things that were understood with college athletics.
I'd say if you're Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, you had a study clause where Cliff Kingsbury had them where he had to study so many hours a week, and then once it made news, they were like, "Oh, we removed it from the contract," and it's like, okay.
Yeah, you got to spell everything out now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way that's what it's all boiling down to.
Okay, Heath, I'm going to close out the last one for you.
Okay.
Get the gears ready.
I'm locked in. I've got one down.
Okay.
I think I'm ready now. I'm warmed up.
Is it more likely that by the end of this season, Vanderbilt fans or Arkansas fans will have torn down the goalpost and earned the $500,000 fine from the SEC office for multiple offenses? Who is more likely to get that another fan storming the field upset.
Wow.
Oh, that's a tough one.
That
I'm,
is a
I'm
tough
trying to look at the schedule for Vanderbilt the rest of the year.
Well, Vanderbilt's got opportunities against Texas and Tennessee.
Yeah, which neither I think will happen.
We didn't think it. You didn't think Alabama was going to happen.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I'll give you that. Arkansas. Let's see. Okay, so Arkansas. Let's see. I gotta. This is the one. This one I'm not as quick on this one as I was.
I've
on the
caught him
previous.
off guard, Donnie.
Well, he's doing his research.
Well, yeah, you know
I didn't get the more likely research in the packet this week.
that is withheld and classified information coming into the week.
He held that one from me. So okay, so you've got LSU at home. If you're Arkansas, you got Ole Miss at home. You got Texas at home. Louisiana Tech. Okay, so I'm gonna say Arkansas.
Arkansas.
Because I think I believe more that Arkansas could beat one of those ranked opponents than I do Vanderbilt with who they have at home for the rest of the season.
See, I'm not even sure. Given how they reacted this time, I'm not even sure they have to beat them. Like Vanderbilt fans might storm the field if they stay within a field goal of Texas. I mean, just saying, they may all get out there with their cowboy hats and have a party. Because there were a lot of Stetsons in that student section for Vanderbilt. More cowboy hats than I have ever seen in the Vanderbilt student section.
Well, I think Vanderbilt too had some extra reasoning for what they did in that game against Alabama, because you had Nick Saban say leading up to that game that the only place that really wasn't an advantage for the home team was Vanderbilt, because no one ever showed up for them and they didn't really have a big crowd. And so when they beat Bama, there was a lot of bad blood there between the two, and they had some extra.
Well, they did play
emphasis for that.
Saban on the jumbo. That statement from Saban on the jumbotron
Yeah.
in the celebration, which I thought was a pretty cool idea by somebody in the Vanderbilt athletic department.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Donnie, are you telling me that we got to get out of here?
It's time, my friend. It's time.
Well, do you want to blow the whistle then?
Got it right here.
Okay. And that's the whistle, and that will do it for today's edition of the Sports Page. Thanks to Aaron Ishmael back at Loud Media, our hosts of Bluetick Tavern, and all of our sponsors. For Donnie Moore, Mike Edwards, and the guys from 2 Hype, until next Saturday, this is Marcus Fitzsimmons wishing everyone good sports.
And that's the final whistle. Join us again next Saturday for the Goatee Sports Page. The best in local sports since 1978.